The invitation to my brother Cameron's 40th birthday party arrived in an expensive envelope. Celebration at the Riverside Estate, 300 guests, formal attire required. A sticky note was attached in his handwriting. Sophie, family only at the main event. You can join the after-party if you'd like. I sat in my office at Global Relief International staring at the note. Family only. After-party optional. A polite way of saying I wasn't important enough for the real celebration. Cameron called the next day. Got my note about Saturday? I did. Good. Look, Sophie, I need this party to be perfect. I'm unveiling my partnership with the Morrison Group. Major investors, board members, political connections. These people expect a certain caliber of guest. I can't have anything that doesn't fit the image. I was reviewing emergency response protocols for the humanitarian crisis in East Africa. And I don't fit the image? Come on, you know what I mean. You work for some international charity doing relief work. It's admirable, but it's not impressive to the people I need to impress. My wife Lauren's friends are all corporate executives and entrepreneurs. You'd feel out of place. My international charity, Global Relief International, where I served as Executive Director of Operations, managing emergency response in 20 countries and overseeing a budget of $200 million. I understand, I said quietly. I knew you would. You've always been reasonable about this stuff. Not everyone can be successful in business. Your humanitarian work is nice, but it's not the kind of success that resonates with serious people. The after-party will be more your speed, casual, low-key, no pressure. Thanks for thinking of me. That's what family does. Oh, and Sophie? Don't mention your job at the main party if you do show up. Just say you work internationally. These people don't need to hear about refugee camps and disaster relief. It's kind of a downer, you know? He hung up. My deputy director Marcus knocked on my door. Sophie, the president's office called. President Morrison wants to confirm you'll be at the humanitarian briefing Saturday afternoon. She's announcing the East Africa aid package and specifically requested you present the operational framework. President Catherine Morrison. The same Morrison whose family group Cameron was partnering with. The president I'd briefed monthly for 2 years on international humanitarian crises. What time is the briefing? 3 o'clock at the Riverside Hotel. Should be done by 5. Cameron's party started at 6. At the Riverside Estate, less than a mile from the hotel. Confirm my attendance. The president's office also asked if you're attending an event at the Riverside Estate afterward. Apparently President Morrison's nephew is having a birthday party and she's planning to stop by briefly. She wants to know if you'll be there so she can continue your conversation. President Morrison's nephew. Cameron. Tell them I'll be there. Saturday afternoon, I dressed in a charcoal suit, professional for the briefing, formal enough for Cameron's party afterward. At 2:30, the Secret Service picked me up for transport to the Riverside Hotel. President Morrison was in the conference room reviewing notes when I arrived. A formidable woman in her 60s who'd built her career on foreign policy expertise. Sophie, thank you for coming. I want to walk through your operational plan before the announcement. The press will have questions about implementation logistics. We spent 90 minutes reviewing the framework I'd developed. Emergency medical response, food distribution networks, refugee support systems. The plan would save thousands of lives and establish long-term stability in the region. This is exactly what we need, President Morrison said. Your team's work has been instrumental in shaping this aid package. I'll be crediting Global Relief specifically in my announcement. The press conference began at 4:30. President Morrison announced the $200 million aid package, then introduced me as the operational architect. Cameras flashed as I explained the implementation strategy, fielding questions from international journalists about logistics and timeline. At 5:15, the president's chief of staff approached. Ms. Harper, the president mentioned you're attending her nephew's birthday party tonight. She'd like you to ride with her to the Riverside Estate. She wants to discuss the Phase 2 expansion. Of course. In the presidential motorcade, President Morrison reviewed additional details. Cameron's been talking about this party for months. Though I have to admit, I was surprised when I mentioned you'd be there and he seemed confused. He said he didn't realize I knew you. Cameron doesn't know what I do, Madam President. He thinks I work for a small international charity doing basic relief work. She looked at me sharply. He doesn't know you're executive director of operations at Global Relief? That you manage emergency response across 20 countries? He's never asked. He assumes my work is insignificant. Your brother is a fool. Her tone was flat. Global Relief International is one of the most effective humanitarian organizations in the world. You've personally overseen responses to 6 major crises in the past 3 years. Heads of state request you by name. Cameron values business success. Humanitarian work doesn't register as impressive to him. Then Cameron needs better education about what matters. She paused. How would you like me to handle this evening? However you think appropriate, Madam President. She smiled slightly. I think a proper introduction is in order. We arrived at the Riverside estate at 6:30. The presidential motorcade pulled up to the main entrance. 3 black SUVs with flags, Secret Service detail, full security protocol. Guests on the red carpet stopped and stared. At the entrance, Cameron stood with Lauren, greeting arrivals. His welcoming smile froze when the president emerged from her vehicle. Aunt Catherine, I didn't expect you so early. He stopped as I stepped out behind her. Sophie, what are you doing in the presidential motorcade? You're supposed to come to the after-party. Good evening, Cameron, President Morrison said coolly. Sophie has been with me all afternoon at the humanitarian aid announcement. We had an excellent briefing. You must be very proud of your sister's work. Cameron's face cycled through confusion and panic. Her work. Sophie does relief work for some charity. Sophie is Executive Director of Operations for Global Relief International, the president said. She manages emergency humanitarian response in 20 countries. She just briefed me and the press corps on the operational framework for our $200 million East Africa aid package. I specifically requested her expertise. The Secret Service had created a cleared path to the entrance. Other guests were watching, listening. Lauren's face had gone pale. I didn't know, Cameron stammered. Clearly. The president's tone could freeze water. Shall we proceed inside? Sophie and I have additional matters to discuss regarding the humanitarian initiative. We swept into the ballroom, a spectacular space with crystal chandeliers and floor-to-ceiling windows. At a VIP table near the front, place cards marked seats for President Morrison and several Morrison Group executives. The president gestured to the chair beside her. Sophie, please join me. Cameron appeared, his voice tight with panic. Aunt Catherine, there's been a seating mix-up. Sophie wasn't supposed to be at the main party. Sophie is here at my personal request. We have humanitarian work to discuss. Unless you're suggesting your business dealings are more important than international crisis response. No, of course not, but the seating chart can be adjusted. The president turned to one of her aides. Please inform the event coordinator that Ms. Harper will be seated with me at the VIP table. Cameron retreated, his face red. Across the room, I saw Lauren frantically talking to the event coordinator. The Morrison Group CEO approached, a silver-haired man I recognized from news coverage. Sophie Harper, James Morrison. I've been following Global Relief's work. Your Sudan response last year was remarkable. Saved thousands of lives with that medical corridor strategy. Thank you, Mr. Morrison. We had excellent local partnerships. Modest as always. I've been trying to get a meeting with you for months. Morrison Group wants to discuss corporate philanthropy partnerships. Your organization's efficiency metrics are the best in the sector. Other guests joined us. International business leaders, diplomats, foundation directors. All people who knew my work, who'd followed Global Relief's operations, who understood humanitarian response. Sophie, your refugee education program is being used as a model by the UN, a World Bank director said. The infrastructure rebuilding framework you developed should be standard protocol, an ambassador added. President Morrison watched this with satisfaction. Sophie is one of the most effective humanitarian leaders of her generation. Global Relief's impact under her direction has been transformative. Cameron stood at the edge of the gathering, looking stricken. This was his party, his celebration, his carefully curated guest list. And they were all focused on his sister, the one he'd relegated to the after-party. At 7 the program began. Cameron took the stage to announce his Morrison Group partnership, talking about business expansion and investment opportunities. The applause was polite but subdued. Then President Morrison stood. Before we continue, I want to recognize someone whose work truly matters. This afternoon, I announced a major humanitarian aid initiative for East Africa. The operational framework, the plan that will save thousands of lives, was developed by someone in this room. He turned to me. Sophie Harper, Executive Director of Operations for Global Relief International, has spent the past year creating a comprehensive response strategy for one of the world's most challenging humanitarian crises. Her work represents the best of what we can accomplish when expertise meets compassion. Sophie, please stand. I stood, heart pounding. Cameras flashed. The room erupted in applause. Genuine, sustained, nothing like Cameron's polite reception. Sophie's organization operates in 20 countries, managing emergency response with remarkable efficiency and impact. She's briefed heads of state, coordinated with the UN, and saved countless lives. I'm honored to work with her, and I'm pleased we can recognize her contributions tonight. The applause continued. The President gestured for me to join her at the podium. Thank you, Madam President. Global Relief's work is possible because of dedicated teams on the ground and generous donors who believe in humanitarian action. I'm grateful for the partnership with the Morrison administration on this critical initiative. We posed for photos, the President and I with the Morrison Group CEO with several ambassadors. The gathered crowd wanted to discuss the aid package, ask about global relief programs, explore partnership opportunities. Cameron's big announcement had been completely overshadowed by his sister's work. During dinner, I sat between President Morrison and James Morrison, discussing corporate philanthropy and humanitarian response strategy. The conversation was substantive, professional, engaging, exactly my world. Sophie, Morrison Group wants to establish a $10 million humanitarian fund, James said. We'd like Global Relief to advise on structure and implementation. Can we schedule a meeting next week? Absolutely. I'll have my team coordinate. President Morrison leaned over. Sophie, I'm appointing you to the National Humanitarian Council. Your expertise is exactly what we need to shape future international aid policy. I'm honored, Madam President. Cameron appeared during dessert, his face strained. Aunt Catherine, could I speak with you privately? Whatever you need to say can be said here, Cameron. It's about the partnership announcement. With all the focus on Sophie, the Morrison Group collaboration kind of got lost. Did it? President Morrison's voice was ice. Perhaps because business partnerships are common while your sister's humanitarian work actually saves lives. Which would you say is more newsworthy? I just thought, this is my birthday party. And I thought my nephew would be proud to have a sister doing extraordinary work. I thought he'd be celebrating her accomplishments, not hiding her at an after-party. I was apparently mistaken. Cameron's face went from red to white. I didn't know what she did. Biz, you never asked. You assumed her work was unimportant. That demonstrates remarkably poor judgment, Cameron. The kind of judgment that makes me question the Morrison Group's partnership with your firm. Aunt Catherine, please. We'll discuss this later. Right now, I'm having an interesting conversation with your sister about humanitarian policy. You're welcome to join us if you can contribute meaningfully to the discussion. He couldn't, so he retreated. Around 9, President Morrison prepared to leave. Secret Service began coordinating departure protocols. He turned to me. Sophie, thank you for an excellent briefing today. I look forward to continued collaboration on humanitarian initiatives. And I apologize for my nephew's behavior. He should have known better. Thank you for the recognition, Madam President. She smiled slightly. Recognition should come from family first. But sometimes family needs reminding about what truly matters. After the president left, the party continued awkwardly. Guests approached asking about my work, requesting meetings with Global Relief, discussing potential partnerships. Cameron's business announcement had been completely overshadowed. Lauren cornered me by the bar. Sophie, I had no idea you worked at such a high level. Cameron said you did basic charity work. I do humanitarian emergency response. Cameron heard what he wanted to hear. He's devastated. The Morrison Group CEO barely talked to him. Everyone wanted to meet you instead. That's not my fault, Lauren. I didn't ask to be recognized. The president made her own choice about what mattered at this event. But it's his birthday party. And he told me I wasn't important enough for the main event. That I should come to the after-party. That my work was a downer that would bore his important guests. She had no response to that. Cameron tried once more before I left, his voice desperate. Sophie, can you talk to Aunt Catherine? She's reconsidering the Morrison Group partnership. She says my judgment is questionable. Please, I need this deal. Cameron, you told me I wasn't suitable for your party. That my humanitarian work wasn't impressive enough for serious people. The president, your aunt, disagrees. So does the Morrison Group CEO. So does everyone here who actually understands what global relief does. I didn't know. How was I supposed to know? By asking. By showing interest in your sister's life. By valuing people for more than their social status. Sophie, please. I have an early flight tomorrow. Emergency response coordination in Somalia. Real work that actually matters. Enjoy the rest of your party. I left him standing there and walked out to the car Global Relief had sent. The next morning the story was everywhere. President Morrison recognizes humanitarian leader at private party. Photos of me with the president. Coverage of the aid package announcement. Commentary about the executive director who'd been deemed unsuitable for her own brother's party. Cameron's business partnership made a small mention on page 3. James Morrison called Monday morning. Sophie, the Morrison Group board met this weekend. We're moving forward with the humanitarian fund, but we're reconsidering our partnership with your brother's firm. His judgment about what and who matters is concerning. That's between you and Cameron, Mr. Morrison. Fair enough. But we want Global Relief advising on all our philanthropic initiatives going forward. Your expertise is exactly what we need. The presidential appointment to the National Humanitarian Council was announced Wednesday. Major news coverage, profiles of my work, Global Relief's expanded role in international aid policy. Mom called Thursday. Sophie, your brother is beside himself. The Morrison partnership is falling apart. His business reputation is damaged. Can you help fix this? I didn't break it, Mom. Cameron decided I wasn't suitable for his party. The president disagreed. The consequences are his to manage. He's your brother. A brother should be proud of his sister's accomplishments. Should celebrate her work. Should include her in important moments. He did none of those things. Cameron sent one text. I hope you're satisfied. You've destroyed my career. I didn't respond. Because I hadn't destroyed anything. I'd simply existed, doing work that mattered, building relationships with people who valued humanitarian action over social status. Cameron had assumed my work was unimportant because it didn't fit his definition of success. But the President of the United States had thought differently. And in the end her opinion, and the opinions of the people actually doing important work in the world, mattered more than any guest list Cameron could ever create. He'd said we had standards to maintain. Turned out the President had standards too. And I met them perfectly.